Well, hello there, Retro PC Durham. It's Chris here with another video, and we have what might be, probably is, the most popular ThinkPad ever. And I'm not speaking necessarily from the sales figures of how many of these were sold by either IBM or Lenovo. I'm referring to the community of ThinkPad enthusiasts. This is the T430. This is the iconic, quintessential, final, last, awesome, super upgradable, customizable model of ThinkPad that any true ThinkPad aficionado loves. Yeah, and it's a great ThinkPad. It's a great machine. This particular one, I think, is in the need of a little bit of TLC, and actually that's why it was sent over to me by someone to take a look at and see if I could get it fixed up and running better than it currently is now. And that is a problem with running too hot. So right now we've got an AIDA64 stress test going on, and we made it up to 91 degrees max at one point on CPU Core 2 and 88 on Core 1. Now, that may or may not actually be a problem, but it may be a problem. So what we are going to do is open the system up. We are going to clean the fan, and we are going to redo the thermal paste. And hopefully the result is going to be lower temperatures, which means we've solved the problem that we were given with this, and we can move on. And while this was here, I figured, hey, might as well show it off, right? So we can take a look at it and catalog it coming across. We've done a T410, we've done a T420, so why not do a T430 as well? We get all three of these, this great line of ThinkPads from the Core i first, second, and third generation processors. All right, so I'm going to end the stability test here, and we are going to, I can feel it's pretty warm coming out the side here on the vent, and we are going to shut down this system and kind of take it all apart. Right, so what we got here, you can take a look and see what we've got with the ThinkPad. This is a 14-inch screen here. I didn't check the resolution on this, but I'm assuming it's the 900p, but we'll get that when we boot back up after we've done the replacement and when we've had a chance to stress test again. Integrated camera, we do still have the ThinkLight on this. This particular model does not have the backlit keyboard, even though it is the new, the new island style keyboard that was added into the system. And that wasn't necessarily available in all models, but this is also a refurbished system, so it's possible that it had a damaged keyboard, and whoever was doing the refurbishing on it just ordered, maybe a third-party something, because you can get, obviously, this keyboard today without the backlight. I went into the BIOS and checked. There wasn't a BIOS option to be able to choose backlight, ThinkLight, or both when you hit the button. So that tells me that it's obviously the keyboard's missing some things. So nice island style keyboard. We've got our touchpad here, our side speakers, and then as we close, we'll take a look at the side here. We've got a single USB 2.0. We've got our manual off button for our Wi-Fi. We have our Express card and an SD card. So Express card's great for when you want to add that eGPU to these systems. We've got our media tray. So in this case, we've got a DVD Multi 3. This slot here is great to be able to add like another hard drive, or maybe I think there was a battery pack as well for this one. So again, very modular in terms of the bay for people to take advantage of as well. Front, nothing really going on here except for our release clip. And then on this side, we have ventilation, VGA, a headset jack, DisplayPort out, and a pair of USB 3.0, which is one of the big popular things on this model, is the fact that it's the first full-scale model for these T-Series that's got the USB 3.0 support, so it's future-proof, so to speak. Barrel jack, a Ethernet jack, and then a powered USB 2. And then we've got our battery in the back, of which, of course, there's all kinds of options for the battery packs as well for extended life and all that stuff. We've got a port here that we can insert a SIM card if we have a Wi-Fi, WAN, LTE modem in here. I'm not sure if this has actually got it. I haven't been in a teardown this one to see what all the different components and modems and everything are, but we might as well. We'll see that, I think, on the way. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the bottom tray from the system. 2 captive screws, very simple. It's off, ready to go. And we can take a look inside. We've got our CMOS battery. We've got an open spot here for our WAN adapter. So there's no LTE modem installed in here right now, but you'd be able to add one in if you needed to. And then we've got a DDR3 SODIMM slot for one of our 2 pieces of memory. The second piece of memory is going to be underneath the keyboard, and we'll see that because we have to remove the keyboard next. So keyboard's easy to remove. It's just this screw here and this screw here underneath the memory tray. So if you're ever with one of these systems and you need to quickly replace one of those components, it is pretty easy to do. Come here, you. There we go. We'll drop those in the tray, and then we'll flip this open, and you just got to kind of shimmy it up. And with some of these models, it depends on the ThinkPad model, but some models the keyboard's in pretty tight. Also, I don't think again that this is necessarily a original version of this keyboard, so the fit isn't necessarily going to be super great, right? This is a light on. It's got what looks like some kind of IBM or Lenovo parts replacement number, but this may be like a 2nd generation model, so it's maybe a little thicker than the frame for the T430 will actually take. So it actually kind of sprung up when I released it, which makes it even easier to remove. But that's it, keyboard replacement, so simple to do. And that reveals the next stage, opening up our system here. So we've got our Wi-Fi adapter here, right? And then we've got our second SODIMM slot for memory. And then we've got our processor and fan. And this is the part that we need to get access to. So the next thing we have to remove is this touchpad wrist rest speaker cover assembly, and that's just another couple of screws that we have to take out as well. So we're going to go 1, come on, magnet. All right, I'm going to unscrew them, and then we'll do the unceremonious dropping of the screws out the bottom of the notebook. I have to switch screwdrivers for this one because it is a little bit deeper, and my lucky orange screwdriver is just a little too wide to fit into these deeper pockets. Okay, so we've got our 5 large screws. I got 4 out of 5 came out, or did I get all 5? I think I got all 5. Yep, okay. I don't want to lose them. So I'm going to take there's our 5 screws, and then we have one more screw to take out, and that is right at the back here underneath where the battery goes. We have to remove this small screw here, right? Little guy. And that's it for the bottom. But we're not finished unscrewing yet. There are a couple more screws that we need to take off on this side before the system is ready to relieve itself of its touchpad. And that's these 2 on either side at the top of the touchpad and wrist rest area. All right, once you've got this up and removed, all of this is now only just held by plastic tabs. So this is where a little TLC may come into place. If you are a fan of using spudgers or anything like that, that's fine. Those work just great. I have some nails right now. I haven't clipped my nails in a couple days, so I've got some fingernail action going on here. So what I'm going to do is just use my fingernails just to get under the lip of each of these, of the corners here. And you just want to kind of work it up, get it separated from the bottom of the chassis. And then once you've got it separated, then you want to kind of shimmy, do a little shimmy. And that's because you've got this plastic clip here, here, and this larger one here that kind of fit around the hinge. You don't want to just try to yank out because you'll snap those pretty easily. And then we've got to remove the connector for the touchpad, right? And once that's off, that's it here. So you can take a look at the bottom of the touchpad mechanics here. You've got your touch sensitivity and click sensitivity buttons here, and they kind of all wire in together. And then you've got some extra little bits here. You can see here some extra little connectors. This one here and this one here. That would be if this, as you can see here where there's kind of this little raised or sunken area here, there could be a fingerprint reader on some of the wrist rests. And that's where this would actually, this part here would actually be worked into the wrist rest. And then this plug here would plug into, I don't remember what spot it goes into on the system board. I don't remember. It's around here somewhere where there would be a connector to be able to plug in the fingerprint reader as well. But that's ready to move out of the way now. And the last thing that we need to do to make sure that we're essentially clear to remove our cooling is this one big fat screw, and that will allow us to gently lift away our speaker on the left side of the system. And now we have access to keep going. I will note here, I didn't remove it for showing, but this area here where you see these red marks, that's the cushioning for the hard disk drive, which goes in this area here. This model here, because I mentioned it was refurbished, happens to have a light-on 120 or so gigabyte SSD drive that's installed, and then there's 8 gig of RAM with two 4 gig DIMMs in here as well. So next up here, we just need to unscrew our processor. Okay, and I believe we are ready to go with that. Okay, so that is good. I will release our power connector, and this should just kind of shimmy out. Be careful about releasing your wireless cables. They hook into this little copper part here, but it's pretty easy to get out here. So we'll take a look at our fan assembly. It's a little dirty. It's a little dirty. So we're going to make sure we get that all cleaned out, and we're going to redo the thermal paste on this, which looks okay. I mean, it doesn't look terrible. So this will give you a chance to see one of the reasons why the 430 in previous models are so popular is because these are actually, in the case of the 430, these are the final machines that actually had the zero insertion force socketed processors. Starting with the T440, in the case of this series, the X40 models all went to BGA. So they all went to soldered chips. And that, you know, kind of from the enthusiast level grading where I want to be able to upgrade my system as I go or have it last into the future, makes a huge difference. So that is a big change that they went through here. So we're going to redo the paste on this. It doesn't look terrible, but it is a little bit dry around the sides and cracked a little bit. So we're going to make sure we get that all cleaned up. I always use coffee filters when I'm cleaning up my thermal paste. I find that it is works very well, and one of the things that's great about using the coffee filters is the fact that they won't leave behind lint. So when you're cleaning something up with like paper towel or even like microfiber cloth, I find you have the chance that you could leave stuff behind. Also, cleaning microfiber cloth that's got thermal paste stuck on it, it's not as easy as you think. Like, you can't just stick it and run it through the wash. You got to do a little bit. You got to do a little bit extra to clean it up. So you might as well just use something disposable when you're cleaning this stuff. And the choice for me is the coffee filters. I got a little 99% ISO here, and that's just to make sure we get around all the cracks and pull all the bits off. And there's a little bit there I wanted to get a hold of. We get all that stuff off there, and then I want to do the same thing with our heatsink here. Just give it a nice buff. Nice little buffing. And that will be ready for us to reinsert. So I'm just going to pop away for a minute and make sure this gets all blown out and cleaned. And we'll take that off camera and then we'll come back and get this continued. All right, we're all cleaned up now. Got all the fan all sprayed out here. Should be nice and clear the whole way through. So we're ready to start getting back into assembly. So the next step I'm going to take is applying a little bit of thermal grease or thermal paste, whatever you want to call it, to the chip here. And that will be to ensure that we get nice, clean, dry, cool operating time. For returning this back into its original spot, we just want to go and do the reverse order. So we want to remember that we have to kind of get these Wi-Fi cables in there a little bit, and you're going to be swinging around a little bit at the same time trying to get our fan pieces in there. All right, so we're good. I'm going to press down here just to place, and then we're going to start screwing in. I should have showed this to you before I put it down. However, on top of the assembly here, there are numbers. So you've got your 1, 2, 3, 4 to tell you the order that they want you to screw back in. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 are our 4 corners, and then we're gonna just go a little bit. They don't have to screw in very much, actually. Only about 5 or 6 turns. And then the last thing we need to do on the cooling is to plug our power back in for the fan. And that's on. All right, and then we're just gonna go reverse order here. We're gonna put our speaker back in. I gotta run the wire here because I did kind of push it. There's a rubber piece on the bottom of the speaker here. So we want to kind of get that back into where it was before as well. And then screw it back into place. Come here, you. That's good. All right, next we will put our touchpad back on. So I want to get our plug back in first. As you can see, kind of see here, gotta line it up since it is plugged in 2 places on the touchpad. There we go, we are plugged in. And then to plug this back in again, we want to get our little parts at the back here that go underneath and beside the hinge first, and then just lightly snap everything down back into place. Okay. And then we can start putting some screws back in here. So we'll start with our 2 screws that were at the top. And our speaker assembly here is still a little bit sticking up. Why are you sticking up a little bit? There we go. Get our screw number 1 for the base. Come on now. Why don't you want to go in? Is that the wrong one? Oh wait, did I grab the wrong one? I think these are all the same. Yeah, these are the same 3 screws. I'm not sure why that's not going in. We'll do this side first then, I guess. One down. Is it the speaker wire in the way? I don't think so. I don't think the speaker wire is in the way at all. It doesn't look like it was. Maybe it was, I don't know, because it went in fine that time. All right, so we've got that piece in here. While I'm on this side, just so I don't have to flip over two times, I'm just going to plug in our keyboard again. It's just down on this part here. Our cable plugs in. You just line it up and snap it into place. Easy peasy. And then you slide in. There's a little guide where you're going to go on the keyboard. There's a little bit of a gap in between the top and the bottom. You just kind of fit it in between those two and then push down and pull back a little bit. And that gets the clips, the catches on the front of the keyboard to get underneath the palm rest. And now we can flip over and put all the rest of our screws in. So I'm going to go ahead and put our little tiny screw that, of course, I dropped on the ground. So now I have to find it. Oh, thankfully it didn't bounce around and disappear like it always does whenever I drop screws on the ground. We got lucky this time. Screw number 1. Now I dropped the screwdriver. Jeez Louise. Lucky screwdriver, come on. All right, now we will get our 7 long screws and we will just drop them all into their different places, and then we will go one turn at a time, getting them all in place. So I got these two here. I'm going to use the other screwdriver for, because my little orange guy might do that one too, actually. Maybe I'll do all of those. Maybe I'll do all of those with this screwdriver because this head is a little bit thinner. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then our 2 screws that secure our keyboard. And these ones will be, because the keyboard's a little bit springy, you will want to take your time and go slow and go back and forth between the two of them just to make sure you're getting it all the way up. And that will ensure that you don't have as much bounce. You want that keyboard, especially the Island keyboard, you want it to be as flat as possible against the rest of the chassis. You don't want any bounce on it because those keys don't have the same spring that the older style has. All right, we get our DVD drive in and then our battery, and then we're ready to get ourselves booted back up again. And here we go, booting back up into Windows. And what I will be doing actually is I'm going to plug in, because to ensure that Ada64 does the most damage possible, I want to make sure that I've got power going on this one, so that there isn't any BIOS level throttling or anything like that. Back at the start of the video when I showed what the temperature was for this system, that 91 and 88 degrees was when it was plugged in, and it was maxing out at like 79 on battery. And that's just naturally because the settings on here are set to balance mode or battery performance mode or whatever it is that is preventing you from being able to push the system to its most powerful. Battery mode off will allow us to do that. So we're going to get back into Ada64 here. Ada64 is a pretty decent, there's lots of benchmarking and testing tools that you can have. Ada64 is not one that I would normally install on a system just to be looking up diagnostic information, but the stress test on it I find is pretty simple, and it's easy to have both the stress test and the results running from the same window at the same time, right? That I can be able to say, go and start doing this work. And then I want to go to statistics, and I want to be able to see all these features at the same time, whereas otherwise I might need to get like hardware info running and see all of this sensor data and then be running another application to try and stress the system out. But again, there's so many different ways that you can do this. There isn't really any one wrong way to be able to, as long as you've got something that's going to be pushing, you know, the CPU and the GPU, in this case, the Intel integrated graphics that are part of the processor, to their max for as long as possible, or as long as you need it to be, to see whether or not the temperatures are going to be where you want them to be, or whether or not there's other issues, right? You maybe want to diagnose to see if the fan is working properly, right? When it gets up to its maximum temperature, am I getting the 4,000 RPM or 4,200 RPM or whatever it is on this ThinkPad that it should be getting, or am I only spinning up to 2,400 RPM or something, or am I getting like less than that, which tells me, yeah, there's definitely something wrong with the fan. Maybe I need to replace it, or I need to pull it out, take it apart, re-grease it, etc. So we're going to let this run for a minute or two, or 5 minutes or something like that, and then we'll come back and see if we get into that max temp range that we were getting to before, or if we're okay. Okay, so we went about 6 and a little bit minutes here to let this run its way through and try to get warmed up. And we're looking good. We maxed out at 73 degrees on CPU 2 and 69 on CPU 1. And just feeling the heat. We got some good, healthy heat coming out here, which is good. I mean, you want to feel heat coming out because that means the heat's no longer in the laptop. But it doesn't feel like it's way too much coming at one time. It's a good, healthy amount of heat coming out of the system. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with the cooling change, right? Going from 91 degrees down to now 74 degrees is definitely an improvement over where we were before. So that's it. We're ready to go. So hope you enjoyed hanging out and checking out this amazing ThinkPad T430. Once again, amazing now that the cooling is fixed. And the little teardown as well. If you've never been inside of T430 before, now you got a little bit of an idea what it kind of looks like and what some of the key components are that you would be looking at upgrading or changing over time. As always, I hope you're staying safe and healthy, and we'll catch you in the next one.